Hello, everyone, and welcome to Give Me Some Good News, the podcast about positivity in hospitality and tourism. I am your host, Caleb Sullivan, here as always with my magnificent co-host, Mr. Tyler Ford. Tyler, how are you doing today?
Caleb, I'm doing just great. I'm ready for some good news. I'm ready for some snow here in the Hickory area. So, to all of our listeners over in Hickory, we're excited. We're getting snow. Um, yeah, so Caleb, who do we have today?
Tyler, we have a very special guest, someone who is near and dear to my heart, Miss Barbara Karasek, longtime friend, also employer. So she is my boss and owner of Paradise Advertising and Marketing. Barbara, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Well, we are colleagues and teammates.
True that.
Caleb, yes, yes. Barbara Karasek, good to see you, Tyler. Caleb, as always. I am an entrepreneur and I am based here in Jacksonville Beach, Florida. So today it is a balmy 50 degrees and a little chilly for the winter, which I'm not complaining. And yeah, spent my career in global sports and entertainment marketing. And then about 8 years ago, my husband and I left corporate America and decided to acquire a full service advertising agency and continue to grow other businesses and invest in other businesses. And here we are. My story is kind of a meandering river of stuff. I'll
Yeah.
just leave
That's
it at
awesome.
that.
Some
Yeah.
might even say great stuff.
Oh, good, yeah, good
Yeah.
stuff.
Good stuff. And one of the things that I've always admired about you, Barbara, is that your foundation and your background in corporate America, in leading teams, in growing businesses, kind of led you into this entrepreneurial space. So, how did that come to be? How did you guys end up looking at Paradise and saying, yes, this is a good purchase for us? Yeah, just kind of give us some of that background.
Yeah, I was very blessed in life. I didn't know the word no for a really long time in my career. So every opportunity or job or task, I just said yes to because frankly, I didn't know any better, and I'm a people pleaser. So I learned very early on in my career, in my early to mid 20s, I was managing delegations of people, 200 team members and thousands of athletes with the US Olympic Committee in other countries, at times traveling by myself. But you learn how to manage a dollar, right? And it's other people's money. And when you represent the United States of America on behalf of Olympic and Paralympic teams globally, you're a steward of your country, but you're a steward of dollars that help support our athletes to give them optimal performance conditions. So you understand the value of a dollar, and that led me into corporate marketing and brand marketing globally for many big brands, sports and entertainment brands. And then Tony and I just decided, to exit and put our skill sets and our passions and our purpose to use. And lo and behold, we've stumbled upon paradise in a strange way, but a beautiful way. And we really wanted to leave a legacy of impacting livelihoods and communities that we serve. And advertising and marketing is a wonderful way to do that. But through tourism, we found was really icing on the cake, to be able to impact destinations and communities and businesses and all of the frontline workers and the long line of leaders that are part of tourism. So it's just a real blessing to be able to be where we're at today.
And I love that. And I love that you kind of found yourself within the world of tourism, which seems like the typical tourism found me. That I feel like that's the kind of the running joke in the industry. And I just kind of had an interesting question come to mind while you're talking about that. We've got this friend named Colton Bailey. So shout out to Colton. He's a non-tourism professional and he loves the podcast, big fan. And I was wondering, since you've been in multiple industries, how would you pitch tourism as an industry to non-tourism professionals?
That's such a great question. So my first job at age 16 was making change at Busch Gardens, Tampa, in the bird garden for people that back when people used coins and everything wasn't digital, right?
Yeah.
I made change. I had these change guns, right, on my hips, and a dollar for 4 quarters, a dollar for 4 quarters, right? And you don't realize it then, but at 16, I started in tourism, right?
Mhm.
And then it's sports and entertainment and global brands, NASCAR, PGA Tour, SeaWorld Entertainment, theme parks, US Olympic Committee. You now look back at the lifespan of your career and you realize, wow, I was in tourism pretty much my whole life.
Yep.
And I would say to a non-tourism professional, have you ever been on vacation? Have you ever traveled anywhere? Or have you ever seen others traveling in your path? And I would say that tourism is everywhere. Tourism is an industry that really bleeds into every life, every livelihood, and every business, right? So you have the direct impact, the induced impact, and the indirect impact. Whether it's your HVAC company going in to build out something in a restaurant or a hotel that serves locals and visitors alike, to roadways that are built, to lifeguards that serve on the beaches, to parks right up in North Carolina where you all live. And I would say to an industry leader that is not in tourism, I would bet whatever their profession is, somehow they touch our industry.
Mhm.
Somehow everybody is interconnected with the movement of people and the movement of business and the movement of commerce, interconnected to tourism somehow. I would argue, show me an industry that isn't
Yep.
Yeah.
connected somehow to tourism.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I learned early on in my DMO, tourism career is tourism from what I've seen has the most catalyst to change a community for the better. That's number one. Number two, I've always seen tourism as cash in hand economic development. So essentially, it is the one driver of tax revenue for a community. And it has the potential to grow and to scale in a way that does touch every single community member. Um, you bring up a good point. So thinking through tourism and the power of tourism. So say a local community has a college, right? Like here with Western Carolina University, right? So if you're in admissions in that college, your goal is to pitch the destination to the prospective students to bring them, to give them a reason to spend their money in your destination at the college. So no matter how you scale tourism, it really truly does touch every point of a community, whether it's recruiting the best, hospital staff, doctors, whether it is bringing people to the college, like we talked about, whether it is, bringing business, economic development to a destination. The tourism base is a great base for communities to grow and to expand on. So, I totally agree. I think when you're working with stakeholders, when you're working with elected officials to show them the value of tourism through advocacy efforts, you have to paint the broader picture of how tourism touches everyone, right? Like for me, again, kind of similar to your story, like starting at a casino, right? Working as a server, even working at a quick service restaurant when I was in high school. We're serving locals and visitors. And it's important to understand that no matter where we are, tourism truly does touch every part of our community. Um, One of the things that I've really admired about the work we do at Paradise, Barbara, is how we truly look at our clients, and I'm using air quotes for those listening, as true partners. What do you believe as an agency owner creates a good partner to work with? Like what is that shared value there?
And that's such a great question. And I love the word partner, right? And I spent the lion's share of my corporate career on the brand side of the business, right? Looking for those agency partners to further my brand and business that I worked for. And the word vendor, right, is sometimes interchangeable with the word agency or partner. And we used to always, tongue in cheek, we would say, well, if you want a vendor, there's a soda machine right around the corner,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's and I say that a little tongue in cheek, but truly it's not a transactional relationship, right? When you put your brand and your destination in somebody else's hands, you don't take that lightly. that you covet that. That is precious to be able to steward somebody else's business and brand and millions of jobs and billions of dollars of economic impact in somebody else's hands. And there's trust that must be there. There's true partnership, right? Being able to get through the good times and the bad times with equal amounts of emotional fortitude and perseverance. But the true way of partnership that we like to say is, it's a cultural fit and being able to work together. So it's no different than a marriage, no different than any other type of relationship. You're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days, but you have to really understand the goal and the intent, and to know that intent is always each other's best interest at heart. We're always looking out for them. Most importantly, first and foremost, we're looking out for our clients' best interests. And then they're looking at our best interest of being, how do they be a better partner to us? And it's really about a relationship built on trust, mutual
Mhm.
respect, and a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
And I know you mentioned that culture word, and I love that. Do you have any like nuggets of advice for building a good culture with somebody you're partnered with?
It's such a great question. I think it's it's about that relationship, like getting to know people, your day-to-day client partners, but also the stakeholders that you represent in the destination, and
Hmm.
getting to know what are their motivations, what are their worries, what keeps them up at night. Again, no different than, and a lot of those are, closed door and very confidential relationships, foundational components. But the nuggets is to really get to know people as people, not just as a transactional partner. Um,
Hmm.
and celebrate the wins, celebrate the losses. And the last couple of years, we've had a lot of roller coasters, right? A lot of, as they say, uncertain times, and all those buzzwords,
Yep.
right? Pivots and and it is true. You really have to lean in and listen. Um, Two ears, one mouth, right? There's a
Yep.
reason for that. And just really lead with your heart and not always your head. And think about um, your why every day,
Yep.
right? And the nuggets are very foundational of just being a good person and being a nice, kind person, and understanding that we're all going through life all at the same time, and we're all here to help.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple.
Yeah. And
And
I've
I
seen,
would
oh, go
argue
ahead.
that oh, sorry, I was going to say, I would argue that that type of thinking could also be part of your pitch of tourism to other industry professionals who are maybe on the cusp of tourism or thinking about it. Well, it's not the thinking of everyone, but it's more common to think this way of, taking out just the number and just building these relationships and friendships and looking at the person inside more. So that I think that's really cool. I think that's in addition to that original pitch of tourism as an industry. So that's
Yeah.
awesome.
And I'll even go on that as saying like that's what I've kind of coined this friendship economy, right? Like we are a tight-knit group in tourism. We are not fintech or investment banking. We know each other. We had Christina Riley on the podcast last week, who's an influencer, and I repeated my favorite quote, which is, business is the most personal thing there is, right? Michael Scott off of The Office. So, in the DMO space, we are a small group. We like to get to know each other and be personal. And I think that's really important is like when you're working with a partner, when you're onboarding a new partner, learning who they are as a person and also aligning with them and what their shared goals are and shared vision for the future and their destination. One of the things I've always admired about you, Barbara, is how optimistic you are in regards to business. So, how do you remain so optimistic as a leader? Like, do you have any tips or tricks for other, business owners or destination leaders in the space?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've at times been, called, Pollyanna, right? How can you be that positive, or is it inauthentic to have that type of a lens? You know, when you Leadership is very different than management, right?
Hmm.
And especially during troubled times, people want to hang on to hope. They want to hang on to positivity. You have to inspire others with positivity and what will be. And it may not be if, but when, right? Yes, things are going to turn around. Yes, we can get through this together. Yes, we're going to face obstacles. But I think I've just always had that positive mindset that in life there's not much that can happen that you truly cannot overcome somehow,
Mm,
right? No matter, I mean, I lived through a lot of tragedies in business and in life. Um, and there's not much that you can't get through or past very rarely by yourself. So you have to galvanize others. You have to be also led by others. You also have to seek out others who are going to push me. There's no way we all get through life, solo. But I don't know any other mindset than being positive. I'm a critical thinker by nature.
hmm
So I always while I look at the glass half full, the hamster wheel in my head sees that it's not full, right?
Yep.
So I'm constantly analyzing, but I'm also always possibly at times too optimistic, but I don't know any other way to be,
Yeah.
right? Stock prices will rebound. If it's not when, it's not if, but when. We will get through COVID. If it's not if, but when, right?
hmm
We will get through a stock market crash. We will get through, um, airport workers that are on strike. We will get through hurricane season. We will get through your snowstorm. We will get through it together. And um, and I appreciate that you respect that in me because at times, um, you live your life a certain way, but you don't know how it impacts others, right? You want to know that you're trying to be a good, positive outlook, individual as a leader.
Yeah, we'll let this be confirmation. And if I haven't told you enough, I'll tell you some more.
Well,
But that is definitely one thing I've always looked up to about you for the years that I've known you. And so, keep fighting the good fight, stay positive. The glass is always half full. I echo that sentiment as well. And speaking of like kind of positivity, we're looking at 2026 and we're looking at ever-changing tourism landscapes, right? Who knows what Trump's going to say next week? Who knows what country he's going to want to take over? Who knows how people are going to feel about the United States as a whole? However, when I look at the future of travel and tourism, I see positivity, hence the name of this podcast. So, what gives you hope about the future of tourism in the upcoming year, and if not the upcoming year, in years to come?
You know what gives me positivity is human movement, right? If you just look at, and as you all know, I'm a data geek, right? I look at the numbers, right? I like to know that it's validated. Hope is not a strategy. I like to have it with some data behind it. Um, I look at the trends in the travel, and at times, if our global markets, right, are backing off of coming to visit the United States, well, then focus inward, and
Mm,
that's okay, right? Focus on our neighbors. Focus neighbors meaning within the U.S., right, our domestic product, and encourage interstate movement. Encourage being a tourist in your own country more than ever before. So I'm positive about that. I'm also positive about the number of developments being built, right? Of the construction. We also pull. I love to see how many permits are pulled for future developments. I like to see real estate sales. I like to see development, commercial and otherwise. I like to see vacation rentals staying strong. Um, those things are positive to me. I also see that we also like to see, cash, our economy, right? More money coming up on tax season, more money is going to be in circulation, which is always positive too. And I think, you can look at a lot of different things where in our industry, it's not just uh, what we see in, like you said, about other industries. Yeah, we look at the stock market. We look at personally, like how is silver doing this week? It's going, it's going great.
Yeah.
But we also look at the financial models and seeing the economy, the economists' reports, right? And looking at quarterly earnings, and a lot of earnings reports for 2025 are getting ready to start coming out of annual reports. And how are the Fortune 100 and Fortune 500 companies doing, and how's Wall Street doing, and what's that look like financially for our country? And when our financial politics aside, when we're healthy as a country financially, people tend to want to spend their money. And that, to me, from a consumer standpoint, consumerism is positive to me, that consumers are happy, healthy, employed,
Yep.
right? Our unemployment is low or lower than it has been and likely will be in the near future. And that means when people are working and they have wages, they tend to have reason to spend. And to me, that makes tourism work harder against the competition.
Yeah. And Tyler knows a thing or two about construction permits and
Oh
development.
yeah.
So I figured I'd
Yes,
pass
I
it to him
do.
to speak to
Well,
that a
I
little
was
bit.
just, I've just got, so I'm in construction sales now,
Yep.
low voltage specifically, but I don't know if most of our listeners will know what that is. But construction sales is easier, so I love it. No, that's a poppin' industry. Things are going well there. So
Yeah. I mean,
yeah, no, everything's going really.
yeah,
Even whenever people can be pessimistic around you, I love your attitude. Hey, things are going great.
I, you
America's
know,
doing great. We've got this.
yeah,
This is
we
awesome.
had,
250.
my husband and I had dinner last night with a couple, and he's in the fintech space, right? And he was telling
Yeah.
us all about fiber optic and the fiber optic cable world of, you know, uh, there's so many things, again, so many interconnectivity to tourism, and
Mhm.
it makes you think about the world that we live in, even more valuable to what the tourism economy can bring. And yeah, I love looking at growth. I love looking at the changing landscape of our destinations, and that to me is exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I even doubling down on that a little bit, like it is my belief that the longing to travel, the wanderlust of humanity spurs us forward into travel, right? And so whenever we do have the means to do so, that is something we'll do. That to me is something that I think gets lost a lot of times whenever we're looking at the here and now, and if this situation, might make this travel season bad or that situation. It's really about the broader picture. And I think you did a really good job of not only kind of weaving the thread of how does tourism benefit a local economy, but how the overall economy influences tourism. And so thank you so much for that.
Barbara, I have one more question for you. I think it's really cool. I don't know if question's the right word. I think it's cool how the first thing you said though is, "Hi, I'm Barbara. I'm an entrepreneur." I was like, that's really neat. And I
Yeah.
wanted to touch on that. I
Yeah,
think it'll be good for our audience to kind of view themselves like, I'm in construction sales, but rather I could say I'm an entrepreneur. Right now, my role is in construction sales, but like,
yeah,
who am I? I'm an entrepreneur. So I
yeah.
think that's a pretty cool way to intro yourself.
It's hard, and I appreciate you saying that, because it's hard when you wear a lot of hats. Like,
Yeah.
what hat am I
Yeah,
wearing?
sure.
Right? It's that we call it the hat dance, right? Like, what hat am I wearing at the moment? But I'm always wearing the entrepreneurial hat, and I think Caleb knows this too. Like I said, when you know how to manage a dollar, you have that entrepreneurial spirit,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And your value transcends any industry. I mean, I believe my skill set would benefit any business or brand.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's like Tony and I are investors in a real estate development up in Georgia, and it's, the first of its kind. And it's just, to be able to, be part of something that flexes your muscles and flexes your brain a little bit, and you
Mhm.
helps you with that. But thank you. And you both should be able to say that too. You're both entrepreneurs. You have
Yeah.
a podcast, you're an entrepreneur,
That's
That's
right.
true. And that's the thing. Like I know you know this, Barbara, but like that's what I try to teach college students is like you are an
Yes.
entrepreneur of your personal brand and of your career. And if you don't take you don't take charge, then it's going to take charge of you. And so, yeah, I always try to learn as much as I can from entrepreneurs, right? Like that's
Yeah.
I try to be like a sponge and try to absorb as much as I can because I think
Yep.
the entrepreneurial mindset is, in my opinion, the best thing about America is that there is a foundation for entrepreneurs to thrive.
Yeah.
And that some of the smartest people I know are people that solve problems just constantly. You're looking at a dollar that way, like how can I use this to solve a problem? So
Right.
yeah.
At NASCAR, they used to say two things. Don't stand still too long or else you might get sold, right? Branded,
Mm.
right?
Yep.
And then two is if your lips are moving, you're selling.
Bingo.
It doesn't
I
matter
love
what
it.
your role or
I
function
love it.
is in the company. If your lips are moving, you are selling this business.
We always like to kind of close with something fun. So, you know, God, I guess this whole episode could be some good news. But Barbara, in your world, what is some good news? Give me some good news.
Good news is that, and I know this is going to sound so, cheesy, but I love the fact that it is what, January 20th, right? And the good news is 2026 is planned, planned, excuse me. And I'm very excited that I have not just work trips this year, but I have personal vacations already planned. And again, that makes me excited. I would also say that there's, the market looks good. Again, January 20th, right? 20 days in, I'll take it. And that's
Absolutely.
exciting to me. But for the first time, I plan some upcoming vacations uh, personally to give myself even something to look forward to, right? Instead of I was, the queen of the last minute. Oh, let's go do this. And you have no time to plan, no time to get excited about it. And so we have a trip later this summer and then one already for the holiday season, which will be here before we know it. So I know those probably aren't as good as maybe some, but I don't know what you were expecting. But to
That's
me,
perfect.
No, that's
that's
great.
exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's the best part of vacation. Maybe not the best part, but the lead up to a vacation is like it's incorporated to me in the overall vacation. So awesome. That's
Yeah,
great news.
that is
Yeah, that's
fantastic
right.
news.
Yeah.
Well, Barbara, if
And
yeah, go ahead.
it's only, about 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks till baseball season. And
Yes,
that's even
And
more important.
that's
So
true. We're all Phillies fans here. I forgot
that
about
is
that.
incorrect.
Big
That is an
Phillies
incorrect
fans on
statement.
record, Barbara and Caleb.
Yeah, that is an absolute incorrect
Congratulations.
statement.
So happy to hear that. We're all excited for some Phillies baseball.
Well, at
Great.
least one of us on this call is.
the who's your team, Caleb?
I, that is a great question. Until North Carolina has a team, I'm pretty much just kind of in limbo. I keep up with the Mariners because shout out to our high school classmate Cal Raleigh for being one of the best in the business. And I also keep up with the Yankees, which I know Barbara, you've got some fandom there or some ties. Because Tyler and I got to go see the Yankees last spring, and so I kept up with them this year.
Yeah, I'm a quasi Philly fan. I would say I'm more a Yankees fan, but I will cheer for the Phillies if they're not playing a New York team. And then my nephew plays in the Rockies organization, so shout out to the Rockies.
Absolutely.
Nice.
Well,
Baseball
Barb,
season can't get here fast enough.
it really can't. And
I know.
we always like to tie it out or close it out by asking, Barbara, if people want to know more about you or find you, where can they do that?
Well, you can go to paradiseadv.com or hit me up on LinkedIn. That's the best way to find me is on LinkedIn. I answer all my emails there and inboxes and happy to connect and chat and get to know you.
And Tyler, where can people find you?
First off, you can find me on LinkedIn.
It's
And
true.
second, Christina told me to get on Threads last week.
That's
So
true.
I don't know if anyone heard that episode. I'm not on Threads just yet. I have not taken the plunge into any of these other social medias, but for now, you can still find me on LinkedIn, and who knows, maybe someday I'll also be on Threads.
Maybe
Caleb,
someday.
where can
Yeah.
people find you?
As always, I'm Caleb Sullivan. I work with Paradise Advertising and Marketing. We are a full service agency. And you can find me at csullivan at paradiseadv.com or on LinkedIn. And this has been some good news.